Thank you, Chris, and welcome to everybody who was on the call, and thank you all for being part of this. It's an exciting time, actually. I just got back yesterday from California, where we announced and promoted the fact that we are joining with the Common Sense Party of California. And what we're doing there is they already had 30,000 signatures to get on the ballot. We need about 73,000, probably better with 80 or 90, because we know that the parties, the established parties, are going to do everything they can to keep us from getting on the ballot, which is one of the things that's good here in Arizona, because you're in a position to really do that and get recognized as a party in 2023. You're right at the cusp of that, and that's what's great. I mean, we're in every state. We've got over 30,000 people who are throughout the country who have shown an interest in the forward movement, because that's what it is. We are a movement. We are built on the dissatisfaction of people who can't stand the fact that the parties are so divisive and the country isn't moving forward and our elected representatives aren't representing us. And we're for bringing people together, not dividing people, but bringing them together. And it's really been very rewarding to go around to the various states and meet with our volunteers, because they come from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all ages. And it's really exciting to see that, because it shows us that we're on the right track, that people are tired of what's been going on. They're tired of the divisiveness. They want to see politicians who will respond to them. And that's what we're doing. That's why we're focusing so much on the local level. I mean, there are 500,000, over 500,000 elective offices across the country, and fully 70% of them in most elections are uncontested. And that's just wrong. Everybody should have a choice. There should be a choice for everybody. And so those are where we're counting, where we're really focusing. We want to give people the opportunity to have a choice. And we want it to be people who respond to them. I mean, Forward National establishes the principles, the state parties set their priorities, and then the candidates take positions on those policies. It's very much a ground up, because the federal national sets the broad principles. And then it's up to the states to bring things forward, to decide, you know, what the issues are. The issues in Arizona are even different than they are in Nevada, but they're certainly different than what they are in New Jersey or New York. And we need to respect that. We need to put ourselves in a position where you have candidates who are responsive and responsible to their constituents. And that's why one of the things that we really are concentrating on now is getting ranked choice voting on the ballot. There were 10 ranked choice voting initiatives in the last election cycle at various levels of government, and fully eight of them passed. And ranked choice voting really is, the way I describe it to people who don't understand it terribly well, is that it's instant runoff. And one of the best examples of how it worked was up in Alaska, where one of the things it does, because with ranked choice voting, you want to be at least number 2 on everybody's list. It means that you don't have these same kind of divisive campaigns that you have, because you've got to talk to everybody. In fact, Mary Patola, who was the first, she's Democrat, she's the first Native Alaskan elected to Congress, was telling us that when she would march in these parades, Sarah Palin was her opponent, and she'd see people with signs saying, you know, Sarah Palin, and she'd wave at them and say, really good choice, but make me number 2. And what happened was Sarah Palin got the base. She got her base at 30%, 32%, but she wasn't number 2 on enough ballots to get her across the line. And so Mary got in. The same thing for Lisa Murkowski. And you had a Republican and a Democrat, and while they didn't technically cross-endorse one another when asked who they were going to vote for, when Lisa was asked who she'd vote for Congress, she said Mary, and when Mary asked who she was going to vote for the Senate, she said Lisa. So you had Democrats endorsing Republicans and Republicans endorsing Democrats. What that does is that starts to get you to a place where people are talking to one another. They're recognizing that they want to solve problems too, that there are answers to these questions, and we can get somewhere if we're willing to sit down and talk with one another. And that's one of the major tenets of the Forward Party, and what we are focusing on. So it's the right time. People are so frustrated and so angry, and that's reflective in the people who are coming to Forward now. We've only been in existence actually 6 months. And for those of you that are business types, you know that merging 2 fully functioning entities is hard enough. This is 3 that we brought together. So it's been exciting. It's been challenging, and it will continue to be, because one of the things that you see is that the Republican and the Democratic parties, once they recognize that this is real, particularly ranked choice voting, they come out, they pull out all the stops to stop it, to defeat it. Actually, in Nevada, they did that. The Republicans and the Democrats both came out against ranked choice voting, and yet it passed by over 50%, about 52.3%. So the people are saying enough already. We want to see a change, and this is the kind of change. We need candidates who will be responsible to us. We're not going to be able to change the system unless we change the way we elect our representatives. And so it's showing that we have this growing volunteer base. We're pushing toward running candidates. That's what's happening here in Arizona. You've got some of the best leaders. Arizona actually is one of our more established states, and you really do have within your power to achieve party recognition and status in 2023, and that would be enormously meaningful. And it makes Arizona almost ground zero for us. It's a very important state for us. So with that, I will stop and happy to answer any questions.
Thanks so much, Governor. We did get several over the course of the last week. Unfortunately, I know you do have time constraint this evening. I don't think we'll be able to get to them all, but
we'll short answers for a change.
Well, not too short, I hope. So I hope we found some that are representative for you. So first one, what was the moment that you realized that the 2-party system was broken and you needed to take some sort of action to fix our politics?
Well, that's when I wrote my book. I was very concerned back in 2005. It actually made the New York Times bestseller list for a nanosecond, which didn't get me any more money. It got me a leather-bound copy of my own book. So there you go. But anyway, I was terribly worried then. What I'd seen with the Bush administration and Congress, what was happening in Congress. And the really tragic thing that's happening today is that, and they'll tell you this, elected representatives will actually tell you this if you know them well enough. They will say they keep issues alive. They don't want to solve problems. They want the issue to use against the other side. In 2001, 2002, I can't remember exactly when it was, Bush administration set up a very, I thought, comprehensive and balanced bill on immigration, and they never even held a hearing on it. I mean, there was no interest in solving there is no interest in solving these big problems because they use them against one another. So this has been something that I've watched happen over the years. I mean, I grew up in Republican politics and I've seen it sliding away from me for all my life, really. Well, starting probably in 64, 65, right about in there. But I was delighted when I was originally part of RAM, and I was delighted when RAM and Sam and Forward decided to get together, because I don't think Andrew and I agree much on positions, probably, if we started to talk about how we saw some of these problems. But what we both absolutely agree on is the need to solve the problems and the need to really save our country.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any regrets?
No, not for a second.
That's good to hear.
Only that we didn't start sooner.
Okay. No, that's true. That's true. But I suppose all things in time. Let's see. Another question we got. I look at this country's political dysfunction, and a question springs to mind. What intervention would get us out of this mess? A centrist third party could do it, but those rarely succeed for several reasons, but mainly because they act as spoilers in close races. How will Ford be different?
In several ways. I mean, first of all, we're a community we're building the structure at the grassroots. That's what's important if it's going to survive. We will support Republicans, Democrats, Independents. They can keep those party associations if they agree with our principles. And the principles are pretty pretty easy, respect for the rule of law, respect for the Constitution, willingness to work across the aisles to solve problems and work together, economic opportunity for all, and a willingness to change the way we elect our representatives. I mean, it is just basic good government. It's what our founding fathers wanted. Also, we have no intention, we don't feel we have to have a forward party candidate in every race. That's why we will endorse candidates who are members of some of the established parties if they agree with our principles. But what we really want to do is ensure that everybody has a choice. So in as many of those local races, because don't forget, those local races have the most immediate impact on our everyday lives. And that's why it's so important to pay attention to who's on the school board, who's on the library commission, who's the county commissioner. Those are critically important. Who's the mayor? Those are critically important elections. We're not focused. Everybody thinks, they're all focused on 2024 and the presidential. We're not. We're focused right now on doing the business of building a party that's going to sustain itself over the long run.
Well said. Next question. There are skeptics who say the Ford Party's broad spectrum of political views will lead to its collapse. But I've also heard that the Democratic and Republican parties were themselves stable big tent parties for much of the 20th century. Is it fair to say that we have a strong historical precedent for how the Ford Party can remain stable? And how would you address such concerns?
Well, I hear them. I've heard them before, but I agree 100% that we have a background in that. I mean, when I grew up, my father was a Republican state chairman. My mother was a national committee woman. My grandmother was national. I mean, they were introduced to one another at the 1933 Republican National Convention. It goes that far back. But when I asked my dad what parties were, he said, they're like an umbrella. You have the central core, the handle. And those are the core, those are the shared principles, what we have in the Forward Party. And then you have the ribs that hold up the canopy. And the ribs are different ways of interpreting those core values, but you're still all under the same canopy. And that's what we have. And that's what we want to be in Forward, which is why we say we set the broad principles, but the issues are going to be up to the state parties to decide what's important to them, not what some amorphous group in Washington tells you have to think. And which say this is what's got to be important to you. We don't care what's really going on in your community. This is what we tell you have to focus on. That's not what we are. We want our candidates and our parties to focus on the issues that are important to them and have our candidates then decide how they're going to take on those issues. And then the public gets an opportunity to vote for someone who is very clear on what they're doing and decide which of these alternatives they want.
Great, thank you. Next question. I've read the Forward Party goals and ideas. How can Ford accomplish the work that needs to be done in a reasonably short period of time?
Well, we want to be on the ballot on 23 states by the end of this year, and on all 50 states, we'd like to be on the ballot by 2024, 2025. We do it state by state. It's by leaders such as you, Chris, and the other leaders in Arizona who are, as I say, you're one of our better organizations. But we're in now, we have some 200, almost 200 leaders who are working right now to recruit people, recruit members, get signatures to get us on the ballot. Because what that does is that shows people this is real, this is happening, and here's an opportunity for you to do something different. If you don't like the way government is working, if you don't like the way the two parties are operating, then here's another opportunity for you to be heard and another choice for you. And that's a powerful message today when better than 60% of the American registered voters are registered independent. They're saying a pox on both your houses. And what happens, unfortunately, is then they don't vote because they don't think they have a real choice. And that's just the wrong response, because that tells those in power, no, either we don't care or you're doing just fine. So we think it's really important to focus on the base, on that basic party building at the base level, because that's where the action is, frankly.
And I'm sure you are aware of this already, Governor, but for those on the call that aren't, Arizona has 1.4 million voters who are registered with no party.
Right.
And I know in Maricopa County, that is now officially
Yep.
the largest voting block.
It is. And
It's
that's
time they
what
got a seat at the table.
time they be heard, because right now they're not heard. And in many states, New Jersey being one of them, it's very difficult to vote if you're unaffiliated. In some states, you can't at all.
Yeah. Excellent. Just a couple more, Governor. I know we're running short on time. Are there current elected officials that we believe will be joining forward once we establish ourselves as a political party across the country?
We've been talking to a lot of people. A number of elected officials have been in conversation. What they need to see is that, it's real. They need to see that we are on the ballot in these states. The problem that so many of the more balanced elected representatives have had is that nobody's had their back. If they've been willing to stand up to party leadership and say, no, this is not how I think we ought to solve this problem, they get moved, they get thrown off committees, their seats get moved, then they get attacked by their own party. No one's had their back, and we're there to do that. And that's what we have to, through raising money and getting on the ballot.
Excellent. So, Governor, as you know, the Arizona team will be collecting 50,000 signatures before the end of the year so that we can do just that, so that we can be recognized as a party in Arizona. What message would you like to convey to anybody on this call this evening who likes the Forward Party, but is still trying to decide how to best get involved?
Get in touch with you. Get in touch with forwardparty.com. And if you go to the forwardparty.com website, they'll put you immediately in touch from whatever state you're in, put you immediately in touch with those state leaders. So volunteer, talk to your friends. You sometimes underestimate the impact you have when you talk to your friends and neighbors. People really respect it when they hear from somebody they know and trust. And if they think you're a decent person, if they trust you, then they will pay attention and just say, look at this, just take a look, see what it is, get comfortable with it, see if you like it, and then sign up and be ready to switch parties. I mean, I can't wait until I get the opportunity to change my registration to Forward Party in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm. Well, Governor, you've been very gracious with your time this evening. I appreciate you taking time to speak with us and answer our questions. Do you have any closing thoughts before I know you have to drop?
Well, tell everybody to go to forwardparty.com. But no, I thank everybody who's on it. Recognize that Arizona is one of those states that really is in a position to make a real impact on the country for Forward by getting on the ballot. And you can do that. And you can do that this year. It's hard work, but we're all in it for the long run. And we're all willing to, put our noses to the grindstone and get this thing done, because it's so important for the United States. It's so important for the world, frankly, that we stay a stable country that's balanced and that can actually solve problems. So thank you all for being on the call.
Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
evening and have a safe weekend.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Governor. Thank you. Okay, so for everybody else who'd like to hang around, now you're stuck with me. I promise to do my best, but I will not be nearly as entertaining.
That was awesome, by the way.
That was great.
That was
and the chat
amazing.
that we didn't get that unfortunately we didn't get to, but I bet we could maybe help answer it.
Yes, exactly.
So Ursink, I'm sorry, I don't know your full name, but
that's Larry.
oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Mr. Sinclair.
How do we find the candidates that have signed on to our principles?
Oh, got it. Yeah, so there is a place where candidates can go. We don't necessarily, that goes to national, it doesn't come to the states. There's on the forwardparty.com website, I think it's under, learn more. I should probably have this memorized, but there is a candidate application form that is available on our website. Any leaders in our community, anybody that you know is passionate about a topic and is building their campaign that would potentially like Ford's endorsement, that would be the best place to go, is the candidate application on the website. And I guarantee you that does get collected, and there is a team at HQ that is responsible for doing candidate outreach. Larry, is that sufficient answer for your question? I'm going to take that as a yes. Any other questions that I can maybe help?
I got one for you,
Sure,
Chris.
go for it, Terry.
Okay, we've talked a little bit about this, and Christine mentioned as well, ranked choice voting is like a #1 priority. So I'm struggling with, we can spend our time trying to get forward on the ballot.
Mhm.
What does that give us? Versus we could spend our time getting ranked choice voting passed. Now, if we're on the ballot, we can do something. Right?
Go ahead.
So,
Was that the end of the question? Go
well,
for it.
so what should be our priority? I would think we would be actively trying to get signatures for ranked choice voting.
So the good news is there is an organization in Arizona that is doing that, and it's called Voter Choice Arizona. I think their website is Voter Choice Arizona with Arizona spelled out.com. I know they have quite a bit of organization both in Phoenix and in Tucson. I know some of the people were on this call back in, I want to say it was November. We actually had them as our guest speaker. They came on and spoke for a bit about the work that they're doing. They are actively working to get ranked choice voting passed as a constitutional amendment in 2024. And we are doing everything we possibly can within the constraints of what we're allowed to do to promote them, to let you know that they exist, to encourage you to go to their website. If you would like to donate to them, you're welcome to do so. If you would like to split your time volunteering between Ford Party and Voter Choice Arizona, you're absolutely welcome to do so. What they will tell you is that because they are a nonpartisan organization in the way they are structured, that they cannot endorse Ford Party. So when you are out volunteering for them, if you choose to do so, they just ask, please don't talk about Ford Party. But what we can talk about them, we can again promote their events. We can encourage people to go to their website, and I think we will continue to do everything we can to accomplish our mission and support theirs. We might get into this. I do have some content to share. I'm not trying to punt the question, but the reality is I think our timeline is much shorter than theirs. There are some things we have to be able to do this year. My hope is that if we could get a really strong volunteer organization for the Ford Party goals, once we get that ball across the finish line or into the end zone, what's the analogy, Ken? I don't know the football things. Once we get that done, my hope is that we'll have a lot of really engaged citizens and voters who are still hungry for more. And those people could very easily transition over into Voter Choice Arizona volunteers, and help them with their work. So that is just thoughts that rumble around in my head. That is not official strategy. That is not anything that we've had conversations with them about. That's just as I'm thinking through the timelines of things, how I'm thinking on that. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. They must be either overwhelmed or not organized or whatever, because I've submitted several times to the website and never hear back.
Got it. I apologize to hear that.
So
We'll do our best.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's a fair question. I appreciate you asking. Any other immediate questions? Again, we have until 9 o'clock. We have plenty of time. Just I'm trying to find a graceful place to transition to that content I wanted to share, but we can do that whenever.
Chris, I always wanted to fill in with Terry's question, because
Sure.
I think it would be important, although Christine was talking about being involved at the local level and building up from the local level, but we actually had a congressional candidate, didn't win. We actually had a congressional candidate in the November election.
Yeah. So we made 2 endorsements in November. In October, we actually made the endorsement. Sorry. And one of those candidates in Arizona won their race and the other one didn't, unfortunately. But I think that kind of speaks to, that's just in Arizona. That's not nationwide. We endorse a lot. But I think one of the things that makes us different is we do believe passionately that those seats should not run uncontested. And we know that in some cases, when we put candidates forward in those previously uncontested seats, that those candidates are going to have a lot of support behind them, just because, you know, a lot of people really, you know, tend to go with the devil they know. We're willing to potentially take loss on certain races, just in the spirit of, you know, loosening the stranglehold of the two-party system. You know, we may take a couple of losses, and that's okay, because what we're trying to show is that these people are not bulletproof. They can, you know, they can have people run against them, and they will have to expend some of their, you know, huge bankrolls to defend their seats. So again, I think that's part of what makes us different. A lot of organizations that come along before, they're not willing to do that, and we are. So great. And I think you started to have a question. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just asking, you're going to get on the ballot. What are you going to do about getting candidates? What's the?
Yeah, so believe it or not, the candidates are already there.
Actually, I do believe that.
Sure. I can't share names, but you know, I started doing this work last summer. A lot of community outreach, talking to a lot of individuals in the state. And I remember the first time I spoke with somebody, and they shared with me that, you know, I was an elected official. I held this seat as a ex-party member, you know, and then I was approached by the party and asked to do something I wasn't comfortable with. I felt it didn't represent my constituents, so I said no. I was then asked to leave the party. I was then forced out of the party. So then I ran as a Y party member, and eventually, you know, they came to me with a similar bargain, and I had to decline, and I got forced out. And now I don't have a home. You know, now I don't have a political home. I don't have a party that will support me. I still want to serve my community. I still believe in the things I've always believed in before. I can't do it on my own as an independent. And, you know, the first time I heard that story, I thought it was very interesting. The second time I heard that story, I thought, oh, that's weird. There's two of them. And then, you know, by the 7th or 8th time I've heard it, I went, oh, this is a thing. And you can switch, you know, Democrat, Republican, whatever. I've heard both versions of it. There are a lot of candidates who still very much want to serve their community. They're still very passionate about serving constituents, and they just don't have a platform to do it on, and they're very anxious for us to get started. So I think the number will surprise you. And I can also speak to, I mentioned earlier, that candidate application form. Back when we did that endorsement process back in October, you know, we did get the full list of everybody in Arizona. And again, considering that we were, at that time, the current iteration of board party was only, you know, a few months old, the number was surprising. It was, you know, it was far more than I would have guessed had somebody asked me before I saw the list. So great question, Ed. Okay, anything in chat? Anybody else wants to hop in? I do want to share a couple of slides. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, so Arizona Forward Party, we want you. So as the governor alluded to, and I kind of mentioned, we are building up our infrastructure right now. We are hoping to get, we are hoping to start collecting individuals. We're making contact with individuals who are interested in becoming county captains within the next couple of months. We are looking to build the team because we are going to collect between 50 and 55,000 signatures before November 30th of this year. So this is an approximate number of signatures we need to collect in each county. We are looking for leadership in each of these counties. If these numbers feel big and intimidating, realize you're not going to have to do it alone. There's going to be two objectives to your mission. The first and foremost is to find other people like you who are interested in helping out. The more people that we have knocking on doors, tabling, talking to strangers, getting signatures, the smaller that number that we become personally responsible for is. So if you yourself are interested, please reach out to us, let us know. We will provide you training, we will give you tools. If you think you know somebody who might be interested, please put them in touch with us. Again, we are trying to start this vetting process very quickly, so that when we have the green light to start collecting signatures, we are ready to go. Any questions?
What
So
are all the
everything,
numbers?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What are all the numbers?
So those are the number of signatures that we're looking for in each county. So in Apache County, we'd like to collect 500 signatures. In Cochise, we'd like to collect 1,000. There is a wrinkle in Arizona statute that states that of the number of signatures that we collect, 10% of those have to come from counties that have less than 500,000 people in them. That is 13 out of 15 counties in Arizona. So we do have to collect at least 5,000 signatures from counties that are not either Pima or Maricopa. This is, if we can get leadership in each county, we believe these are the numbers that we would need out of each county in order to hit our target number. Great question. Any others?
Larry is asking if he can sign online or if he has to sign on paper, and I'm not sure if he's talking about the petition or signing up to lead.
My guess is he's asking about the petition itself. So there's a term that part of this wonderful adventure is I get to learn all these new terms. One of them is wet signature. So wet signature means that it's actually ink on paper. So far as I can tell, Arizona does not do digital signatures for petitions. We require wet signatures, so it has to be ink on paper. What can happen is we can have somebody in your county come to you, bring you the petition, ask you to sign it. And I think our objective is, as much as possible, we would like to be able to go door to door and collect signatures that way. Part of the reason why that number is so big is because we know that a certain number of signatures are going to be legally contested. We know that just as part of that process, a certain number of signatures are going to be thrown out. So we're actually targeting a number that's a little bit higher than the one we actually need. And it's so that we have buffer zone for as those signatures are challenged, we have additional signatures in reserve. One of the best ways to get signatures that aren't challenged is to do it by going door to door. So we will do some of that. We will do some of what's traditionally called tabling. So if you've ever been walking into your local library and somebody asks you if you're a registered voter in your county and asks you to sign something, that's an example of somebody who's tabling. We will do that. We will do door to door. We will go to friends and neighbors. We will bring sign-up sheets to our Taco Tuesday events and ask for people to sign our petition without accidentally getting salsa on the forms, etc. So we're gonna throw every strategy we have at it. Great question, Larry.
Question, who can sign? Is it, because normally when you sign in a party, you have to be a party member, but I assume it doesn't work that way.
Nope, you just have to be a registered voter. Yep, in the county that you're signing for.
Thank you, Chris. I was just going to add that.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, Ken, I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
So the signatures have to come from those counties. So
Yeah,
the numbers that you're seeing are the numbers that we're looking for, because we have to get them out of every county.
yep. Yeah, and to be fair, this is maybe opportunity for Glenn to jump in. This is what we consider to be an even distribution based on population. So if something happens and we were to get 50 signatures out of La Paz and 150 out of Greenlee, that doesn't mean we failed. We're just trying to, hey, Greenlee, we got, let's get you in there too. Let's make sure that you have representation and people who are interested in helping out there have an opportunity to do so, if that makes sense. Any other questions? Okay. one more slide to share, and then we can just chit chat for a bit. So moving forward together, we have a new Linktree page. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the platform, Linktree is it's a site where you can go and you can have links to all of your other sites. So instead of having to remember our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, our Discord, our homepage, where our events are, you can just go to the Linktree site and you'll have all of those. There's a QR code on the screen. You can scan that. It'll take you to the page. The URL is right below it. There are links to join the community, support the team. Again, if you're interested in doing that, please remember that small recurring donations are very powerful. Heroic one-time donations are great. We gladly accept them, but we will need sustaining support in order to accomplish this mission. And the best way to do that is to give $5 or $10 a month if you can. You can also find local events. And then, as I mentioned, we have links to all of our social media. So obviously, if you have the other pages bookmarked, you're welcome to continue doing those. If you're looking for one source that has everything, it is this amazing Linktree site. So, and that's all I got. I will leave this up for a little bit so people can interact with the QR code if they'd like, but I think that's all the content I had. I did want to open the floor up and let's have a discussion. Anybody doing anything fun for the holiday weekend?
Actually, Chris, I do have a question that I have not seen, haven't really looked that close either, in all honesty. So this may be a dumb question. But with the ranked choice voting, if you, is there something in there that would stop a person from making, say, like the example you gave with up in Alaska for Sarah Palin and Mary, that what would stop them from going Sarah Palin, first choice, second choice, third choice? Can't.
That's spoil the ballot. So right now, so we have several races in Arizona where they'll tell you, here's all the candidates and you can pick 5, right? Well, if you accidentally pick 6, if you lose track of how many bubbles you're circling, your ballot is considered spoiled, and in some counties your ballot will then go to adjudication and somebody will try to reconcile the voters' intent. In some cases they'll go through what's called a curing process where they'll actually reach out to you and say, hey dummy, you filled in 6 boxes, right? So you would run into a similar situation with that. So the instructions are really clear. Usually it's first, second, third, fourth, fifth are assigned on the y-axis, and then you have your candidates on the x-axis. And I probably have those flipped, Glenn. I'm sorry. But listed down the side, you have all the candidates, and then across you have first choice, second choice, third choice. You could fill them all in, but the reality is at that point your first choice counts. There's if you have the right, you absolutely have the right to stop filling in bubbles after a certain point. If you fill out bubbles in such a way that your candidates don't do very well, there is something called an exhausted ballot. So if you were to say, Sarah Palin is my first choice, my second choice, third choice. Well, if Sarah Palin doesn't make it past the second round, then make it past the first round, when they go to look for your second choice, they're not going to see one, and they're going to go, this ballot is exhausted, and they're going to put it aside.
Okay.
That's how that works.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think Sarah Palin actually messed up because she told people not to rank somebody second. And I believe that there was a moderate Republican who got knocked out in the first round.
Yeah,
and a lot of his people didn't rank anybody second. And if they had, Palin would have won.
I mean, that's so I'm trying to do them. I remember the number of exhausted ballots very clearly because I did a graphic on it, and it was like 11,000. There were a substantial number of second baggage votes that went to Palin. It wasn't enough. There were enough second votes that went to Patola that it helped Palin, but it wasn't enough to put her into first place. So yeah, there were 11,000 exhausted ballots for Begich. This is both the beauty and the curse of ranked choice voting. People, so this concept of strategic voting, right? So, I want this person to win, so I'm going to vote this way. You run a very serious gamble if you do that with ranked choice voting, because you're counting on there not being enough people that are also voting for your first choice, that person doesn't just become the de facto candidate. So the ranked choice voting, one of the things I personally like about it really kind of discourages strategic voting, and could potentially hurt a candidate who was advocating for it, so to speak. So
That was why the governors just talked about the fact that Mary Patola was walking the parades in Alaska, telling them to vote to Sarah Palin's great for number one. They picked me as number two, because a lot of you have to get to 50 plus one, 50% plus one, and that, depending on how you try to rank your ballot, you can end up with the number one candidate not getting the 50 plus one. And a lot of times the number two candidate ends up being the one that wins overall when you go through the process.
And so that's the threshold. It could only go through one round. If the number one vote getter was 50% plus one, it stops.
Yep.
The counting
correct.
stops.
Yep.
Okay, that's
Yep.
the way I understood you. Okay.
Yep. If there's enough people that we do it on the first one, then it stops after the first one.
Right.
Yep. Interesting. Just to backtrack ever so slightly, we were talking about how ranked choice voting makes the the campaign process a little more civil. I wish I could remember the other candidate's name, but when Andrew Yang was running for mayor of New York, I don't remember the candidate's name. I don't remember the specific issue. I want to say it was schools. But there were instances where he and that candidate were going to rallies together and saying things like, I don't always agree with Emma, but she and I are both lockstep in agreement that our schools are important and we should be doing everything we possibly can to improve them. I know I'm your number one choice, but I really hope that you make Emma your number two. And then Emma would get up and speak and she would say, yeah, Chris is great. I know I'm your number one choice, but I really hope you make Chris number two because we both care about schools. And then people are like, oh, this is awesome. They're getting along. They're not fighting or running attack ads against one another. So, I have seen that happen, and it does occur. It is not some fantasy that ranked choice voting advocates float as a hypothetical. It is a thing that actually happens. So
I would encourage people to go to the ranked choice Arizona, voter choice Arizona. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The Voter Choice Arizona website, because they have examples and basically little games that you could go through to see how that process works. And it's really helps to understand how that process shuffles through what they call the primaries, but basically goes through that process to identify a person that's got 50 plus one.
Yeah, and if you've ever gone to the grocery store for an item and they were out of your item and you had to pick something else instead, you've participated in ranked choice voting. So,
Chris, another question. When we were talking about once we get to party status, and we have candidates that we're looking at, and they have to agree to our principles and blah blah blah. Are these before we start doling out, so to speak, our endorsement for the party at that time? Are these candidates being pretty well vetted? I hate to see somebody come in. I hate to be cynical, right? That somebody coming in who's in a tight race, thinking that if I come in here and say the right thing, that I can get some more votes out of it and then go back to doing what I was doing.
Yeah,
So
not only is there a vetting process, but this was the part that I found a little bit fascinating, was that, round one was us, the process we went through in October was very, very quick. We had to get endorsements out within a certain amount of time for them to mean anything. So, we had to turn on things pretty quickly. But the framework was laid, the instructions that we were provided and the training that we were given was very obvious that the intention was that in the future, this would be something that volunteers and people of the community were doing. So this would be training that would be available to anybody who wanted to participate in the vetting process. Hey, you know what? You want us to take a look at this candidate? Here you go. Here's the rubric we're going to use. Give us what, go through this process and tell us who you got. So it was very much, they came to us, they said, here are all the people that have actively applied. You are welcome to go out and look for other people in your community that you think might be good candidates. We did not have time to do that. And then using the criteria that they provide, which it's not secret, viability, are these viable candidates? Do they have campaign websites? Do they have teams? Do they have some sort of budget? It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be bulletproof, but it has to be something. We have to be able to tell this is actually somebody running for office, not just somebody who's filling out the application for yucks. And then if they meet that criteria, then do they have a history of free people? So, supporting free people, thriving communities, vibrant democracy. And that sounds a little bit wishy-washy until you actually start going through and going, oh, wait, no, look at this. No, this policy here, this fits with this. And oh, this thing that they're running on, that actually fits with that. And you start to see that those three principles actually are quite load bearing. So yeah, that is absolutely the vetting process. I think it is established, and I think that it'll be used by the community, and it will be bottom up. I know there's a lot of we tend to think of candidates who's somebody who's already been through a lot of that process, and then they come out, and then you're asked to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That's not how we're going to do it. It's going to be completely different. So
right. Okay.
Ken, oh, okay, you're talking to Sean. Sorry. Any other questions?
Yeah, Larry was just kind of asking about like maybe how ways people can help with petitions if maybe they don't like to do the peopling.
Yeah, so one of the things, I kind of alluded to it a little bit on the slide, but I think it's worth repeating. So there's going to be two objectives for anybody who signs up to be a leader in these counties. Believe it or not, the number one goal is not to get the signatures. The number one goal is to find other people just like you. So, as we go around, as we knock on doors, we're going to have conversations with people. Hopefully many of them have heard of us, but we know that some of them will not have heard of us. And as we have conversations with them, they will like what we're doing. They will want to get involved. We will need people who are able to do outreach to those people within 30 minutes, within an hour, within a day, and get them in touch with us to get them looped in, to go out and help start collecting signatures. So we will need a robust support system of people all over the state who can assist us with getting those people in touch with us so that we can get them the training and the resources they need to be able to go out and help collect signatures. I suspect there at some point may be more demand than we can responsibly handle, but we will do our best. So it's a great question. It is. And again, I think there'll be lots of things like that. So stay tuned.
Yeah, and I'll just add, like, if anybody knows that they want to get involved now, let us know. But there's also a spot on the Arizona the Forward Party, Arizona Forward Party website where you can sign up to volunteer, and that, you know, tells us that, you know, you want to help out. And then there's like a code of conduct and stuff like that you sign, and it gets you all going. So like that first step's done, and then we can just find you some things to do.
Yep. No, and part of that training I mentioned in resources, you know, that we will have access to software. We will, you know, we will have some voter data. We will know which doors to go knock on. So we're not just sending you out into the snow and driving rain to talk to strangers. We will have information for you to help grease the wheels, as it were, on those conversations. Not that Bob Chiavetti is afraid of cold calls. So
Part of doing business.
part of doing business, right? So. Yeah, snow in Casa Grande. Well, you know, so I don't know if you guys have seen, but there was snow up on the Superstitions, and then there's like a light dusting up on Four Peaks. So, you know, I've lived in Arizona all my life. I remember when jokes about snowing in Phoenix were, you know, snowballs, chance in hell, and now it feels like it's a fairly regular occurrence. So,
My funny story, my first year here, moving here, and my kids, well, because it was for our grandkids is why we chased our grandkids down here, one main reason. But second, the weather, right? 300 plus days of sunshine, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't here a month here in Fountain Hills, and it snowed. And I looked at my kids and I went, could have stayed home for this weather. I could have stayed there. I didn't need to come down here for this.
You brought it with you.
Was that?
You were
What
lied
year was
to.
that?
What's that?
What year? What did
It
that
was
happen?
in 2018.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I was like, I couldn't believe it was cold and it snowed. And I mean, it's not like, you know, it was pretty, it did stick, and it was, you know, of course it stuck to the cars faster because the, you know, it was, you know, evening and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I was like, I didn't move here for snow. I'm anti-snow. 100% anti.
Did you grab a box and start packing again, or did you just?
No, the thought did cross my mind, and then my granddaughters, you know, and then you see them and you're like, okay, I guess the snow's not that bad.
Right.
Yeah. So
Very cool.
yeah.
Excellent. Well, it was nice getting visited by Governor Whitman. Go see that every day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That was nice.
I haven't had a chance to meet her yet, so it was nice to be able to. Yeah.
Yeah. Forward Party co-chair. No, I think we lost Emma. Yeah, Larry, we'd love to. Yeah. So trying to think if there's anything else to speak on regarding the signature collection. I think I covered everything that we have to share now, but
So you're going to have the data to be able to go, so we're not knocking on, shall we say, maybe unfriendlies.
yeah. So I think
More.
Yeah, I think what we'll probably see is, you know, people with a history of participating in elections. You know, I think what we'll have is access to, you know, these people vote. Let's go have a conversation with them. You know, and I think, you know, one of the things that I have found, yeah, I've had my mind changed about a lot of things in the last 6 months, and you know, I think a lot of people are sometimes very firmly entrenched in their current positions because they're not aware that there's another option. And maybe not in the first conversation and maybe not in the fifth conversation, but at some point down the line, once you plant the seed, they start to let go of that grip they have on their currently held beliefs, and they start to you know, be open to new things. So, you know, yeah, there might be some people Dave that we go talk to the first time, and they're polite, but maybe not that polite. And then 6 months later, they're showing up wondering how they can help. So,
I would, oh, sorry.
I've as an organizer for the Teamsters Union, knocking on those doors, I can assure you I had some very memorable experiences, shall we say,
Yep.
on both sides.
Sure.
But if you can get them talking, right,
Mhm.
have a conversation with them, then sometimes it's not so bad.
Mhm.
But
Yep, that's the key.
I have had I was in just outside of Kansas City, and
Mhm.
guy pulled a gun out and told me to get off his property.
Okay.
Okay.
It's like, yes, sir. We'll see you later.
A simple
So-
no would have been fine.
Huh?
Yeah.
A simple no would have been fine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would have had me at no, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I vivid memories of a house I was walking up to in Iowa. The gate was open. I was walking down the driveway. I got about halfway down it, and then 3 dogs come barreling around the side of the house, and I was like, I think I'm not going to knock on this door.
I started to walk. They
left me alone as soon as I started walking away. But
yeah, I started walking up to a house, and the guy was in his garage or around his garage, and this dog's in the backyard, a big yard, and he comes running up, and I just froze. I'm like, whoa. And he goes, looked at me, and he goes, "You don't have to worry." He says he's fenced in. And I'm looking around, and I don't see, what I consider a fence.
Right.
And he laughed. He goes, "You're not from around here, are you?" I'm like, "Nope." And he goes, "Yeah, there's an electric fence goes around his collar, and he can't get past that. So he'll, raise guff over there, but he can't get to you. What can I do for you?"
Right. Nice.
So, like, okay, well,
That was very
yeah.
generous of him to share that with you.
What's that?
So it was very generous of him to share that tidbit with you.
Yeah. He could stay. It was funny too. It was in Ohio, and I just stopped dead in my tracks. I was just like, "Ooh." He was kind of big and looked like he would have ate me for just because. And I was like, "Nah, I'm not into getting chewed up." So, yeah.
So we are free to keep going. I think Nodder will thank me if I stop recording now, though. I'm going to stop.
Good idea.